Guys, it's Sarge here. What we're going to be doing today is an interview with Ben Morgan. He is the senior firearms instructor from Battleline Tactical. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm good. Just trying to maintain my sanity, being locked in the house with two teenagers and two dogs and my wife, and there's nowhere to go.
Absolutely.
It's
No, I
kind of
get
weird.
it. I get it. We're going to call this the quarantine podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, who goes crazy first?
Yeah. So if you don't mind, do you just want to give a little bio on yourself, just for some of the audience that we have?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I joined the Army in 1994 and went in to First Ranger Battalion and spent three years there, maybe just a little over 3 years, and then I got out. And then I went to college. Kind of was just like, well, what am I going to do? And decided to go back in the Army, but I went back in as an officer, and I went to flight school, fly helicopters, and developed a problem with my ears during flight school, so I wasn't able to keep flying. I flew for about 60 hours, so nothing too crazy. You tell people that, and they always think, oh, so you can fly a helicopter, and you're like, no, it doesn't really work that way. I flew one particular type of helicopter for a very, very short amount of time. It's not like on TV where they're just like, oh, there's a helicopter, turn it on and jump in and they take off. You got to know how to fly that particular aircraft, to actually be able to fly it. But so I flew for like 60 hours, and it was fun, but it was also a miserable experience just because of the problem in my inner ears. And so I went back and I finished out my next 2 years just as an infantry officer down at JRTC in Fort Polk, Louisiana, which is, what we were doing was important, but at the same time, it was tough. It's a hard job. That job is, it's hard. So, so I couldn't fly. I just didn't want to stay, another 20 years doing that. And, so I got out in 2006, and then I started contracting in 2007. And the contract world's kind of weird in that there's a lot of different jobs out there that some are a little bit more high speed, I guess you would say, than others, and
Right.
Sometimes you end up on a job that's just not that much fun. But I did a couple jobs that were, looking back now, you're like, that was pretty interesting thing. And so I got, 2007, I was in Iraq, and then parts of 2008, I was in Africa, did a contract job in the United States, which was, that was pretty cool, training Army guys to go overseas. So, you got to like what you do a little bit and at least see the big picture of it. So, did that, and then went to work for the State Department doing the high threat protection deal, and I guess that was 2009. And did that for a couple of years. I sustained a back injury during a rocket attack, and not that I took any shrapnel or anything from the rocket. I mean, it was just my reaction to the rocket that got me hurt, and bulged out some discs in my thoracic spine, and started having all kinds of spasms and weird things, and I just physically wasn't reliable anymore, and I realized that, and so I was kind of like, well, I can't do this job, and if you're not an asset, you're a liability, and physically the problems I was having, you can't do that kind of work and not be 100% physically reliable anyway. And so I just called it a day, and kind of became a stay-at-home dad for a good number of years, which was fine. I had missed out a lot of my kids growing up. The first time I left in 2007, they were maybe 4 months old or something. So, that first 3 years, essentially, almost 4 years, I missed it. I really did. And then, so getting to be home with my kids every day for, man, years and years and years was great. My wife had a full-time job, and so it wasn't bad, and they do have a thing for contractors that's called DBA, and it's kind of their It's kind of their what you would call workman's comp program, so to speak. It's all through the government and all this kind of things, and it's a tangled web, that's for sure. But if you figure it out and you understand how it works, um, it's not bad money. And so it wasn't like, oh, I was screwed financially. I was okay, and so it wasn't bad. I mean, I was in a lot of pain and things like that, so that kind of sucked. But at least I wasn't in pain and eating ramen noodles 24/7, So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's it. And then and I guess a couple years back, Chris, uh, I think we put on a class here in Colorado Springs, and I went out and just taught with Chris kind of that day, and he kind of saw, I've known Chris for years. I mean, it's got to be almost 25, 30 years that we've kind of known each other. And so, and then he kind of saw, what I brought to the table as far as an instructor goes and the way I teach and those kind of things. And, he kind of was like, hey, do you want to keep teaching with us? And I was like, yeah. And so things happen. And eventually I just kind of took the reins of running Battleline in itself. And, I'm not, it's not like a one-man show. I
Right.
have Jeremy Mitchell who helps. Well, I wouldn't even say he helps. He's really the brains behind it all. Chris and I, when it comes to a lot of the stuff with the computers, I'm just not that savvy with it. I can do some basic stuff, but Jeremy's he's really the brains behind that stuff. And we couldn't do what we do without Jeremy. There's just no way. So we're really lucky to have him, and then Chris's wife also helps with a lot of stuff, and and it works. We kind of put together a good group of people that trust each other, and no one's perfect. We all make mistakes and screw stuff up from time to time, but nobody has any kind of malice behind the mistakes, and we work well together, and it's been a good experience, and we enjoy it, and so that's kind of how I ended up, running Battleline, I guess, and also being the head firearms instructor. So, when we go out and teach, I'm the guy that's usually out there, running his trap most of the time. And so, yeah, I mean, so that's kind of it. That's how it, A to B right there with all that stuff. I mean, that's like 25 years worth of stuff coming
Yeah.
together right there. But the short and sweet of it all, that's it. I'm not um, I'm not a world champion shooter, some grandmaster USPSA guy or IDPA dude, and I'm not a former Delta Sergeant Major that stacked up bodies for 18 years. I'm not. I mean, that's just the nature of that. And I know there's a lot of guys that kind of want to put themselves out there as that guy, but I'm not that dude, And but I do think I have brought a very good approach to shooting and understanding how to shoot, but also understanding all the things that go into shooting. And I do think I do a good job of explaining that to students, as opposed to just monkey see, monkey do kind of style of teaching, which I don't agree with. So, yeah, I'm not that guy, but at the same time, I'm a good instructor. At least I think I am. I might, you know what I mean?
No,
You listen,
I
you
would
listen
definitely echo that. Yeah, you are a phenomenal instructor, and I think we both have met those individuals that they wear all the 511 clothes and the patches on their jackets and on their shirts, and they were a supply assistant, if anything, in the military. So I definitely
right, and not, and it's not that that's a bad job. That's a vital job. You have to do that, but at the same time,
be proud that
know,
that was your job. Don't try to
right,
make
be proud of that what you did and own it. And I mean, I wouldn't. If I met a guy who was the end all be all kind of dude, and then you met somebody that did something else, like you said, a supply assistant or whatever. I don't look at one person as saying, you deserve my respect and you don't.
right.
You don't know what that supply person went through. They could have been through all kinds of shit. You don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I've met guys that were, I was a pre-GWAT Ranger Regiment guy. So, and most people, that's how you can kind of tell a dude's not lying. Because nobody lies about being in regiment before the wars kicked off, because it was not that it wasn't a good thing, and it was an experience that probably really saved my life, but at the same time, it was kind of tough as far
Yeah.
as the way we treated each other and things along those lines. And there was no war to fight, so that's kind of hard. And but I've met guys that were like, yeah, I spent 6 months in Afghanistan in 2002 or 2003. I never fired my rifle once. You know what I mean? So it's like, on paper, it's like, wow, that guy's, he's slayed all these bad guys. And it's like, well, maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I've seen some guys from training military and from training law enforcement guys that have done really cool stuff on paper. They've been in, even firefights, whatever it is, and you get them on the range and it's like, hey, that dude must have been standing low and to the left. Hey, just because you were in a firefight doesn't mean you were in one correctly. And
Right.
I think that is
Right.
a takeaway from that. So
Yeah. Yeah. When I was at JRTC, that was 2000, I guess, what would that have been? 2000, late 2004 to 2006. And so there was a lot of guys coming through there, not just that were assigned there, but they were also, rotating through for rotations. And so you would meet these guys, and you would see all that's one thing the Army's good about, is always giving you a badge for everything.
yeah,
And so you would see dudes that had, you could tell, okay, this guy jumped into northern Iraq with the 173rd, or, in my day, a guy with a mustard stain on his jump wings, that was like a big deal. You just didn't see those guys because there was Grenada and Panama. That was it for as far
right.
as jumping in goes. So, but then, yeah, I would go out to the range with these dudes and do stuff, and you're kind of like, man, you don't. I know you've done some things and seen some shit, but as far as the shooting aspect of this goes, you're not all that spun up, bro. So.
Yeah, yeah, and that'll we'll get into that with some of the questions that I got. But what would you say was your main reason for wanting to teach courses?
I It's kind of strange in that I it wasn't like I started out with the desire to want to teach people how to shoot. It was that I wanted to teach myself how to shoot. And it's kind of weird. In 2005, I did the Best Ranger competition in the Army, and it's a big deal in the Army. And one of the things during the train up we were doing was just working with pistols, M9s, the old Berettas, and and I thought I was pretty good with a pistol, and I was decent. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a train wreck here coming, but I was out with my partner for the competition, and we were shooting handguns, and I was kind of realizing, man, I'm not that good with this handgun. I mean, like I said, yeah, I passed the Army quals and all that stuff, and I understand how it works, but
Right.
I couldn't run a gun. You know what I mean? I didn't really know how to shoot, and so I was like, you need to get better at this kind of thing. And then starting out and getting into the contract world, you have to shoot quals and stuff for some of these jobs, and the handgun stuff is what usually gets people. And I just kind of started to realize that I wasn't as good with a handgun as I wanted to be, especially now that it's like, okay, you need to know how to use this properly, because it's your life or your buddy's life that might be on the line. And so you want to know how to run this gun the right way. And so I really started to kind of immerse myself in not just, okay, how do I shoot? How do you do this? Not just the mechanics of shooting, but all of the stuff that's rolled up in that, as far as, how do your eyeballs work? How do your muscles work under stress? How does your body react to stress? How, does, how do all these the psychological effects of this, how does that work? how do you learn to do something new? How does your brain work with that stuff and the neuromotor pathways that it sends to your muscles and all these things? And so I wanted to know that side of shooting as well. And I think that's just kind of my personality. It's not just, oh, how do you do this? I want to know the why behind everything. And then, under stress, you have these adrenaline dumps. Well, what does adrenaline do to your system? And it's not just when you say, oh yeah, it's adrenaline. But what does that do? So I would read all of these things and kind of study the effects of all this stuff and how that affects your shooting. And because I wanted to be able to apply that to myself. And so I would go out and I would read these things, and then I would just go to the range and shoot and test this, test that, and just kind of kept chipping away at myself. And I was lucky enough to have a buddy of mine that was a sergeant major over at CAG. And, when brief conversation with him here and there, I'd ask him some things with shooting, and he'd give me a little bit of advice this way and that way. And then I would take that, put it into my kind of system, and then just build on that and kind of go from there. And then when Chris asked me to come out and help teach that course, and I started just kind of talking and teaching, I realized that people were really receptive to it and the way that it came out. And I was like, well, maybe you're actually, pretty good at this. Because like I said, I'm not a world champion shooter, but I have the ability to diagnose what people are doing, why they're doing it the way they are. And I can explain that to people pretty well instead of, coming out with all the big giant medical terms and things that I can't pronounce anyway.
Yeah.
I can kind of dumb it down. And I hate to say dumb it down because I'm not dumbing it down to the individual, because I've dumbed it down to myself. Because, I have a lot of really smart friends, and they've always just kind of explained things to me in layman's terms, and that helps because, the big words and all that stuff, I'm not going to remember that anyway. And but I felt like I was pretty good at conveying that information to the student, not just, things like eye dominance. I've heard and seen really good instructors talk about eye dominance, and I've heard some of them say, oh, you can retrain your brain, to use if you're right-handed, you can train yourself to use your right eye to be your dominant eye. Well, that's just not true, and I went and talked to an ophthalmologist and was like, hey, can you do that? Is that possible? And he said, no, it's not possible. And he explained to me why it's not possible. And it has to do with just the way your body's wired. That one of your eyeballs has more connections to your brain than the other one does. Now, I might have, my left eye might have 5 connections and my right eye might have 7. So it's not a huge difference between the two, but it could be. One might have 4 and one might have 10. So if that's the case, you can't really cheat it. You know what I mean? So you have to work around it. And then you just have to, explain to people that this is the workaround. And this is why you have to do it that way. And it's one of those things you can't explain it in 59 seconds on Instagram. It takes a couple minutes to actually explain to people and show it to them and all that kind of stuff. So, just little things like that are.
No, I am. I'm actually right-handed, left eye dominant.
Okay.
And the first time I took a formal shooting course, it was a pistol course. The guy was trying to tell me, well, that's going to be harder for you. Just shoot with your right eye. And I was like, yeah, dude, I just don't think that makes any sense because look at how I'm shooting. And I was shooting good groups. And he goes, yeah, but you should just try to do what's easiest for you and use your right eye. And I said, well, that's not what's easiest for me.
Right. It doesn't work, man. Let me plug in my computer. I'm listening.
So then when I decided to get into the training side, I had taken some courses because a lot of people had told me where if you want to be an instructor, you have to go and take the NRA courses, and we can have a separate conversation about that. But, for the range that I teach at, I had to have some of the NRA courses for the insurance. So gotta go do them.
Okay.
I went and took the NRA's pistol and pistol instructor class, and the instructor there had a wonderful resume. I would have thought on paper, this dude, like federal service, good, cool stuff. We go to the shooting range, and I shoot you have to shoot a 6-inch group, 15 out of 20 rounds at 15 yards. And I put 20 out of 20 in a 6-inch group, and okay, can I go? And he goes, well, yeah, you're good. The dude next to me had all of his shots to the left of the target. And he goes, well, actually, hey, you already teach a little bit, right? And I said, yeah, because at the time I was teaching courses at an indoor range up the road. And he said, hey, can you help me? Because I don't know what this guy's doing wrong. And I was just kind of like, okay. Like, because he had already told us his resume. When you start the course off telling me what your resume is, and then you start not backing it up with your action, I start questioning everything.
Right.
So I look and I'm like, okay. I said, well, how are you? Show me your shooting stance, or show me your style. Like, how are you shooting right now? And the guy is right-handed, but he's left eye dominant. Well, instead of squaring his body up, he was putting his body in a straight line and pushing everything to the left.
Right.
I was like, hey, how about we do this?
Yeah, it's amazing when you explain that stuff to people. I mean, because I mean, if you can't see that front sight clearly, you're never going to be able to put rounds where you want them to be.
Yeah.
And or if you're running a red dot,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you need to be able to see that red dot. And I'm 46 years old, but my eyes are kind of starting to go a little bit, and I can kind of get away with it if I'm outside. But when I'm shooting indoors, I really have a hard time seeing that front sight. And I think it's the lights that they use in those indoor ranges.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so my eyes are kind of starting to go. And it really shows up when 15 yards and further back, where I can see, okay, I just can't shoot the groups I used to be able to shoot. So I am switching things over to red dots. But
Okay.
even with that red dot, if I shoot it off my right eye, I get two kind of window frames basically off of the red dot housing. And so I get two of those, and it's kind of distracting. So I don't have to turn my head as much with a red dot as I did with irons to catch it off my left eye. But yeah, until you see that and have that kind of clarity of those sights, you're never going to really be able to produce an accurate shot group.
Yeah.
And it's something little. It's a very minor thing when you really think about the solution to the problem. But man, yeah, if you can't see right, you're going to have a hell of a time ever being any good with a pistol.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. What was your push to develop your own dry firing system?
One of the problems, or one of the things, kind of like right now with being at home all the time and not having a lot to do, because my kids were now going to school full time. They're, probably in second grade or whatever it was at this point, and my wife was working, so I was home kind of by myself a lot, and I was dry firing a lot. And I just was down there one day, and I was like, I really just wish I knew how long this was taking me to do. I mean, I'm doing my like defensive draw strokes, and I'm doing my presentations, and I break the trigger, and it's like, how long did that take to do? I don't know. I mean, was it a second? Was it a second? 1.1, 1.2? There's kind of amounts of time that are very hard for a person to perceive. And so using the range timer, where you set it to like a second or a second and a half, and it beep, and then beep, at the end, and it's like, what, did I beat the beep, or did I kind of break that shot like right in the middle or the end of the beep, or and then two, you couldn't record any of that information. So you couldn't look and say, okay, I'm consistently hitting 1.2 or 1.29 as opposed to 1.21. I mean, that's a big difference, A 10th of a second sounds like, this very, very, and it is a short amount of time, but in a gunfight especially, that's an eternity. So if I'm 0.2 of a second faster than you, I can have a chance. So I wanted to know that. And again, I think it goes back to just kind of my personality, where it's like, yeah, okay, that's, I want to know exactly what I'm doing. I want to know exactly what's going on. How am I performing? Am I getting a little bit faster? Is there a way I can move my gear this way or that way, or do something just a little bit different to gain that 1/10 or 2/10 of a second edge? And I wanted to have a system that could show me that. And so I kind of, start the process. I'd never invented anything before, so that was kind of different. And so, you go on Google and you do the Google patent searches and all this stuff, because obviously if somebody else has something like that, you don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
So, I was doing the Google searches. I was talking to some friends of mine that, guys, GRS guys for the agency, some CAG dudes, some guys that had really done a lot of shooting and things like that. And I asked them, do you think this is a good idea? You think people would buy it? That whole kind of thing, the viability of the product. And they all were like, no, I think it's a good idea. It'd be good information for people to have, and people would like it. And there was no other system available at that time. That was probably like 2014, maybe 2015, in that range. And there was nothing else out there. So I was like, well, why not try to make one? And, famous last words right there.
Yeah.
Then you started getting down the rabbit hole of what it actually takes to not just create a product, but invent a product that, when no one's ever done it before, it's just trial and error. And trial and error in that world just means money.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I got lucky in regards to good people coming and helping me and doing some things, and they were trustworthy. There's a lot of just shady people. They don't have the best ethics in the world, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I never really technically got screwed over by anybody. There's a couple people that did some things that I would kind of maybe question their true intent. They were pretty quick to take your money, but at the same time, they didn't really do what I wanted them to do.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But so that was it. I was just dry firing in my basement and was like, man, I wish I knew from beep to trigger break how long this was taking me to do. And and again, I read a bunch of stuff about, the way we learn and the way we perform under stress, and that, just because you can do something slow, that whole slow is smooth, smooth is fast idea,
Yeah.
it's complete nonsense. If you slow is just slow. And just because you can do something slowly, that doesn't mean you can do it quickly or at full speed. You need to start that way. You need to start pretty slow and methodical, but you need to build on that speed. You have to push yourself to go faster. And essentially what that does is now you're creating a neuromotor pathway from your brain to all your muscles that are involved in the shooting process, or the mechanics of it. And now you're creating that pathway to do it quickly, because you have a pathway to do it slow. And then if you have no pathway to do it fast, and you try to do it fast, it's going to be that old expression, you're all thumbs kind of thing, fumbling. Yeah. And you'll see people do that out on the range when you put a box next to them and say, all right, I want you to try to go as fast as you can and maintain your accuracy. And I mean, you've seen it. You hear that beep, man, you can just basically see people's brains shut down. And they're like, and they start making all kinds of mechanical mistakes, just weapons manipulation mistakes. And then they get, that stress just kicks in and they don't know what to do. And they're like, well, I've been taking forever to do this. I'm just going to pull the trigger and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they end up doing.
Well, and I'll say too, one of the things that going on the slow is smooth, smooth is fast is, what is your definition of slow? And that's why I try to tell people, because when they use it, well, you have to do it slow and practice slow. Okay, but maybe your slow is different than mine. Your slow is 8 seconds. My slow is 2 seconds. Or, right. You know what I mean? Something to that effect. You just have to increase what the slow is. Don't get focused on, well, I can take 10 seconds to get the pistol out of my holster. You probably shouldn't. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's true. That is true that everybody's idea or definition of fast is different than someone else's. But there is the clock doesn't lie. It's kind of like the scale.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel thin today. Well, nah, you're not. Or I feel like I put on some pounds. Oh, you didn't. It's kind of one of those things. And using my system, I was actually doing some dry fire stuff last night because I figured out a way to put that system into an AR-15 bolt, and so just basically ready up drills.
Yeah.
Because you can overcomplicate anything, and shooting obviously is one of those things that you can overcomplicate it. But it's your sight picture, it's your sight alignment. You're in control of the trigger. You break the shot when you're ready to take the shot. So how fast can you do that? How fast can you get your gun from that? I know they changed the definitions of all these things, but that kind of high ready or low ready position, the retention ready position, or the muzzle up position.
Right.
From that position to engagement, how long does that take you? Because that obviously is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Because you're reacting to something, so you're kind of behind the power curve anyway. In the civilian world, you're not allowed to really be offensive in nature with a gun. You're going to prison.
Yep.
And so you have to react to a situation, and the only way to kind of catch up or get ahead is to be faster than that person and be better with that sight alignment, sight picture, and take that shot when you're ready. And but yeah, I was doing that last night, and there were times when I would get a presentation and break my shot and think, wow, that one was good. I did that real smooth, real fast. And you'd check the clock, and it's like, no, that was, 0.8, let's say. And then there was others where you're like, wow, the fastest I think I got one was 0.58 or something like that. I forget. But, somewhere in that kind of 0.6 to 1 second range is where I was kind of running. But the first time you do something extremely fast, I like to take that as, okay, that's my new standard that I should be able to do all the time. And at first, yeah, you're like, I'm going full speed and it's taking me a second. Well, it doesn't take that long, maybe 20 minutes, 3 days a week of doing that. And now your new fast becomes 0.85.
Right.
Just after a week. Well, that's your new standard. And then after, another week, there is a limit. There's just you can only go so fast. At some point you are stuck time-wise, but that's where you want to get to. Then you want to be able to stay there. So the only way to do that is to consistently get those reps in at full 100% speed.
Right. And make sure that we're not losing accuracy in doing that either.
Right, exactly. It's not just how fast or how quickly can I mechanically do this. It's how long does it take me to do it right.
Yeah, because that's something I've seen quite a bit is people will focus on how fast can I shoot or how fast can I do X, Y, or Z, but they don't care that their target looks like they shot it with birdshot.
Right. No, accuracy always is the thing, but how long does it take you to clear that gun out of the holster, get a good presentation, and start breaking shots? And I know that, for me, like from 7 yards kind of in that high teens, the 0.2, maybe like 0.17 to 0.23, that's about as fast as I can reset a trigger and take another shot and maintain accuracy. When I say like all A-zone style hits or something. So I really can't make up any time on the trigger. That's as fast as I can really go and be accurate. So where can I make up that time? I can make it up by clearing my cover garment better, getting a better draw stroke. You don't ever want to lose that defensive capability. You don't ever want to cheat that just for speed, because there's a reason behind all that stuff. And, but the presentation part of it, to get on that front sight, to get a good sight picture, a good sight alignment, have my trigger prepped. So as soon as I have an acceptable sight picture with acceptable alignment, I can break that shot. How long does that take you to do? Because that matters.
Well, and I'll tell you, I've noticed a difference with if I'm doing like a concealed carry, not a license, but like I do a concealed carry tactics course where you're running whatever you normally carry in, and I have scenarios set up, stuff like that we'll run through. And I've seen a bunch of people where it's a concealed carry course and they come up there with battle belts or war belts,
Right.
and they have their competition holsters, which just the gun just falls right out of it, and they're real quick with that. But then you tell them to put on an inside the waistband holster, which is how they normally carry, and now that 1 second shot is a 3 second shot because that's not how they practice.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, exactly. And it's hard. I mean, because when you think about it, if you go to the range and you go to an indoor range or even an outdoor range, the range safety officers there, it's pretty rare that they're going to let people do a full draw stroke just for the safety aspects of it. And I get it. Everybody's so happy. And it's like, oh, it's your fault because you let me do this. What? But in the law is the law, and you can't really get around that. So that's why the ranges restrict that, and they just don't let people do it. And I understand, but at the same time, you're right. That's something you need to practice. And so how do you practice that if you can't do it at the range? Or even if you can do it at the range, most of the time there's another shooter standing right next to you, banging away.
yeah.
But even if you have that blue box of death right there with you, is that my shot or his shot? And, so you can't really get an accurate read on your own time, but you can at home, dry firing, and you can practice that over and over and over again, because you're right. I always grew up with a kind of low ready, or high ready that they call it now, whatever you want to do, but, muzzle down kind of thing, stock in your shoulder and this up. That's the way I grew up kind of shooting with an AR, let's say. So when I do that, I can be pretty quick with it because I've done it hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah.
But when I start doing the things from that retention ready kind of muzzle up position, I'm slower because I haven't done it as much. There are guys out there that can do it from that position, and I mean, extremely, extremely fast. So it's possible. Mechanically, it's possible. I just don't have the reps in to be quick at it yet. So you're only gonna be good at the things that you practice doing. You're not just gonna wake up one day or find yourself in this magic moment where you just outperform your own ability, and it just doesn't happen. It's just not the way the body works. If you can't do it under stress at the range, you'll never do it for real. It's just not possible.
Right. And I think Clint Smith from Thunder Ranch, I think he said you're not going to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the middle of a fight.
No.
And that's how when individuals come up and when they take courses, they're taking it with a Glock 17 with a Surefire X300, and they have a 21 round mag, but for concealed carry, they carry a 380 pocket gun, but they never spend time shooting it. You're gonna
it's snappy, or it's this, or they don't really like it, so they don't use it. But that's what you carry around every day to save your life.
Yeah.
You're like, dude. I mean, I get it. I've run a lot of different carry guns over the years, and the smaller guns are more comfortable, but they're harder to shoot.
Yeah.
And so when people come to a course, they don't ever want to look like the fool. You know what I mean? And I hate to use that term, but they don't ever want to look like they're not good kind of thing. And so they're going to bring, like you said, you see guys with Glock 17s with comps on them.
Yeah.
And,
threaded barrels, but nothing to thread them to.
Right. And you're like, dude, I mean, dude, how much crap do you have strapped to this gun? There's no way you're going to carry that inside your waistband all day. And some people are like, it doesn't bother me, I do it. Oh, okay. But me personally, I'm a skinny bastard, so there's no way, man, carrying that all day. Glock 19 is about as big as I can carry concealed and feel comfortable with, and it is an all day kind of thing. You can carry anything for 10 minutes, but
right.
That all day thing sitting on you. And I don't get the comps on 9mm anyway.
I've never understood why that's something popular. I know a couple guys that come up to my classes. They run them on theirs, and it's like, can you not control a 9mm or what? Like,
Well, I mean, comps are for high pressure rounds,
yeah,
and a 9mm is just not a high pressure enough round for that comp to really do what it's designed to do. And second, you still have to reset the trigger anyway. That
yeah,
slide without a comp is going to beat you back to the ready position
every time.
before you can reset that trigger
Yeah,
any day. It's not
I
even. It's. I know. I've met some shooters that have said, "Oh, I outran my slide." It's like, no, you didn't. You short stroked your reset, but you didn't outrun the slide. Those
I don't
slides were
I
running in
don't think
hundreds
Jerry
or
Mitchell.
thousandths of a second. What's that?
I don't think Jerry Mitchell has outran his slide.
Right, and that guy, yeah, it's just not
Yeah,
possible.
yeah,
So
yeah.
to me, why are you putting a comp on a 9mm carry
Yeah.
gun? It just doesn't make sense to me. But I mean, some people just like to accessorize their gun, and so in that aspect, I get it. But yeah,